Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Nature Folklore Sessions. It's 10th of July, 2022. Well, hello, good afternoon. As I say, 10th of July, 2022. Warmest day here in Ireland, certainly Carrick and Shannon, where I am. It's 24 degrees centigrade, 75 Fahrenheit. That's hot for Ireland. And there's something going on here already. Right, no, there's a problem. I thought I was computer flying down. Anyway, the sun hasn't really come out yet as expected. But for those of you who are on the beach and watching later, hello, and thank you for those who are already joining me. And I must attend to a bit of a thing going on with one of the computers. I think it's sorted. Great. There we go. So thank you for joining me for our weekly time of exploring nature-centered folklore, connecting this within your favorite sanctuary space, which may well be the beach today if you've got the weather like us, and expressing your inspired visions from your sanctuary through your poetry, writing, art, craft, performance, and even problem solving. Now, this is the first part of a two-part series. It was supposed to start last week. Sorry, I wasn't here. But this is focused on sustainable practices. And let's give you that. Sacred action as it is. And there's a bit of a sustainable practices for you. And through this session, we're going to focus on sacred actions. That was the first picture. That's what we're going to be talking about. Now, that can understandably seem a bit confusing, merging what we may vision as sacred actions with what we may vision as sustainable practices. I've had a few conversations about this within Facebook groups during the past week especially, and one friend in one of the groups, I forget which one it was, Louise Hanley, she lives in Belfast, and she had a lovely response to one of the points I was putting into a conversation thread. And she said, humanity has forgotten about how it was people that invented time. The discussion was about time and distance. And so I'll repeat that. Humanity has forgotten about how it was people invented time. The natural way of life is forgiven, such as how to look at the night sky, the sun's shadow and nature to tell the time, and the changing seasons too. So I responded that I believe that the human actions and practices from these pre-clockwise observations were actually the foundations of folklore. Then as our configurations of time and distance developed with our human culture, they then got wrapped up around the folklore. Then human life became fortressed by a kind of a new mysterious realm called facts that also became known as truth. Anyway, enough of that deep psychology stuff. Only one guest we got today. We got Astrid Adler, a lovely piece from Astrid, and there's a picture of Astrid here. Very multi-talented woman. I'll talk about her a bit later. And no other guests today, even though there was a call out, but I know we've got guest booked next week, so we got quite a bumper edition next week anyway, very special edition. Well, this is a special edition too, of course. And these nature folklore sessions, the videos, the tree and water sanctuary support, they're all brought to you due to the support of our subscribers. And as I say, thank you very much. This is so highly appreciated, the support you give. And I know some subscribers will be live with us today. I'll be joining us and watching later. So thank you for all your continued support, because without it, I wouldn't be able to fund putting on this show to share with you every Sunday. Now, I'm still not covering the weekly and annual expenses. So if you can help to be a subscriber, there's that main link there. And if you're not too keen on going through PayPal, which is what Patreon does, you can just use your regular card and give a little token through buymeacoffee.com. There we go, the / the nature folklore, buymeacoffee.com. So anything helping out with $1, pound, or euro more per month, it goes a long way with the number of people helping out to keep the show afloat. So many thanks for that. All right. What have we got now? Lovely early birds. Let's see. We've got a few early birds here who managed to join us, which is lovely. Who we got here? Sherry's here. Lovely regular Sherry. Good morning, everyone, from down East Maine. Beautiful here this morning. So glad you're back, John. Missed our session last week. And the lovely Breezy from Donegal. She's here as well. She's somewhere in the hills. And good day to you, Breezy. Lovely to have you on board with us. And and Claire's right in the sunny area because it's up here in the northwest. We've still got this massive cloud over. The rest of Ireland is scorching. And there we are. Claire Roach over in the east in Dublin. And I know there's a guest next week, Jane Gilgan. I believe she's over there with Claire as well. So that's she's a huge supporter. So many thanks, Jane, if you happen to be watching as well. Lovely. We got thank you for being on board because, as I say, it is if you're in Ireland or in Europe, a fantastic day that it is. Now, to expand a little bit on my semi-cryptic introductory explanation, bumbling today's theme. Many people love the symbolism of what they call the Celtic Wheel. So if I bring that up, there might be a bit more understanding. So let's get back to my photos. There we are. There's some Celtic Wheel. I get a bit of clout about this because I like this because we've got the 8 points of the year, and then there's sort of an association with what's going on in the landscape on the outside. But like with a lot of these Celtic wheels, they're using the Gregorian calendar rather than going through the old mathematics of observation and working through what's called the precession of equinoxes to calculate the sidereal time and the cross quarter points. But that's not what I'm doing on this session. Anyway, that's the Celtic Wheel, and that's going to be a big focus of what I'm going to be talking about. Now, several people, as I say, they teach the Celtic way, the wheel, and they talk about the 8 divisions throughout the year. That's probably a wheel you're more familiar with. I think is that a wicker one? I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm not even going to talk about wicker. It's just nice to have the 8 points on a chart there. And each of those 8 divisions being times of observances, spiritual practice, and a range of rituals that people enjoy doing. And of course, these 8 divisions, there's 2 solstices, there's 2 equinoxes, and 4 cross-quarter times, being Imbolc, Bealtaine, Lughnasadh, and so on. But how do we teach how to relate this Celtic wheel, how to connect this Celtic wheel to the solar year cycles of farming, gardening, and doing what we feel is best to understand the wilderness around us? There may be a lot of goddess, she, and universe references during these 8 celebrations within the Celtic wheel. But how do these references get translated out into our sustainable practices, our day-to-day work, vocation, whatever we're doing, hobbies? Now, this is the intent of this, what's now a 2-part rather than 3-part sustainable practices series that we've got now in the middle of July. And I'm sure this is a subject, I'm going to come back each July to it, and it's going to develop each year as I return to this. Last week, it was only 1 week. We got 2 weeks this time. Hopefully, it'll be 3 weeks next July. Anyway, my first thought regarding farming is that when the ancient... now, what's happening? Oh, another computer is playing up. Sorry. It's the main broadcasting computer is going. There we go. I think I've got you all back again. Anyway, my first thought regarding. Oh no, it won't go away. Sorry, I got some niggling bug that keeps coming up on the broadcasting computer, so I hope it doesn't actually mess up my broadcasting to you. It's stopping me getting to the photos at the moment. Anyway, well, I'll be with the photos in a second. Here we go. They're coming back again. Fantastic. As I was saying, my first thought regarding farming is when the ancient sky observations, there's some ancient geometry here, When they were translated in geometry patterns and developed into earliest mathematics and other sort of symbolism, that's something perhaps familiar with, which that was used in association with ancient mathematics that we probably know. This created the concept of understanding how a settled farming could be made possible, as a settled farming schedule could be set up through the solar year, and it was through sky observations, as above, so below, that settled farming was able to happen. You couldn't do that before then. You were stuck with the hunter-gathering. Anyway, that's the beginnings. And I'm going to, as we go through Lughnasadh editions, I'm going to be talking a lot more about that. Anyway, I assume that the farming year eventually took over from most of the foraging activities, and this became the main annual schedule to enable the feeding of us human population that was growing, and also the rearing of animals as well. So add to this the challenge of developing an awareness of how to conduct controlled farming in union with the wilderness that was there, and also the existing she, or maybe goddess or prana, ki, whatever it is you associate with. There's Artemis there, goddess of the wilderness. So in association, that's an example, in association with Artemis, even though she's Greek. So how can farming cycle be more? How can we bring in sacred actions through sustainable practices in a farming situation? I don't know what the heck that is, but it seemed to fit the sentence that I just said. So how can the farming cycle become sacred actions through sustainable practices? Now, last year's sustainable practice was just one episode, and we had Dana Driscoll, who was our guest, and she brought this book out, and it's had remarkable popularity since then. And Dana's publishers have actually asked her to write a follow-up. And Dana's actually going to be live with us next Sunday, and she's going to be talking about her follow-up book and her upcoming book. And I'll try to include a forum amongst you on sustainable practices. We'll have a real good discussion, and we'll have Dana involved with that as well. And with Dana's Sacred Actions book, which covers earth care, people care, and fair share, everything is, all kinds of things are presented and questioned within the book. And even this includes reskilling ourselves and approaching reskilling as a spiritual practice. And that's all in Dana's book there. So we also have principles for local eating, friendship gardening, and even in the book, making your own smudge sticks, which is a wonderful thing to do, especially to Samhain. So that's some of the contents of Dana's Sustainable Practices book. And for many people, especially those connected with nature folklore, these 8 points of the Celtic Wheel, these 8 points of the year, they're times of ritual and spiritual practice, which people love to get together and engage in. But because of how the seasons flow in Ireland, I personally feel that where we are, we're pretty close to following the seasons of the cross-quarter time, the Imbolc, Bealtaine, Lughnasadh and so on. But in the more in the north area, the people from north of Scotland also we can include in this, Scandinavia, and over Canada and Alaska. The 2 solstices and the 2 equinoxes seem to be more defined for those people and naturally honored, especially by the original indigenous people in those regions. But let's not forget the precession of the equinoxes, which I mentioned earlier. Let's give you a brief, if you can understand something from that. But that gives us our cross-quarter points, that calculation through understanding that. So you can Google that out, precession of equinoxes, and spend a rainy day going over it, and you'll understand how these cross-quarter points come about and how they relate down to Earth. Fascinating subject. You start into that, you could be spending years on it, like I did through my teens especially. Anyway, so these days, the Celtic Wheel teachers have merged with the Norse observations with our cross-quarter ones, And we get, so there again, let's see if I can find another chart, a bit different one. So we ended up with our Celtic year with the 8 points of rituals and sacred action in between. And so what I would love to share with you for the remainder of this session this afternoon is applying those observations with some of what we explore through the nature folklore sessions on Sunday. And here's some words. That's from Dana's book, Challenge-Based Spiritual Practitioners, is how to integrate sustainable living with our everyday lives, and including the sacred actions as well, rather than dress up like a costume drama or do your rituals and then go home and put your food in the microwave. It's how you actually translate those sacred actions into your sustainable practices. And so I'm talking about using observations and those rituals, put them into your gardening, permaculture, forestry, wildlife care, anything to do with our food, shelter, and healthcare, bringing the two together, connecting it all together. So one of the things about tarot, I always think, tarot that's used for divination. A question I've had ever since I was a child is, why is there tarot? There's pictures. People could read pictures. They couldn't read lines, linear scribing. They could read pictures. So I often think, what is the tarot telling the story of? I always say, what is behind that? Well, it's used for divination, but somehow I feel there was physical forms that stories were being told of, and that's what the tarot was originally for. Certainly the Sybil cards, the predecessor to the regular playing cards, that's very much what they were, is a form of giving a bit of language to people. And even the yarrow sticks with the I Ching, similar thing. So that's, again, I'm talking about this, linking the sacred actions, which are like your tarot cards, with what's actually going on, sustainable actions. I suppose I'm repeating myself a bit. Anyway, the fabulous Dana's book's certainly a fabulous reference tool. I haven't put the link up yet, but I'll put something up at the end of the show when I close down again. So there you go. Sacred Actions, Living Wheel of the Year, and it was released during last year, middle of last year. I'd like to recommend that book or video. It's a book. It's books are lovely, but I still like to point out, I'm raving on about her book, but as usual, I like to recommend that a book or a video is absolutely no substitute to getting some kind of apprenticeship. And I had there we go, there's an apprenticeship photo, in case you know. So, to actually being hands-on and doing some kind of apprenticeship, absolutely fabulous. But these days, very few of us are in a position to take on a full-time working week doing an apprenticeship. So there's no sorcerer's apprenticeship for us these days. I think there we go. There's a sorcerer's apprenticeship to bring out my point in case you want to do something very magical with your apprenticeship. But we do attend weekend workshops. That's something we can do, courses of the weekend, or even take a vacation holiday week doing a course, which is a kind of apprenticeship perhaps we can do around our current careers, our current vocation. Or instead of going to college, we may decide to do a full-time apprenticeship. People still do that if they can. I think that is growing now. And I'm seriously thinking about offering small group nature folklore workshops myself next year. We had some friends come around yesterday, and I kind of realized, it'd be nice to have one or two people around to kind of show and share things. It'd be fantastic. Because we do live in a very calm, lush, and beautiful, peaceful area still. There in Lughnasadh. Anyway, back to Dana Driscoll's Sacred Actions book. Each chapter of a book, it observes a point of the year and presents practical, sustainable lifestyle suggestions that matches our observations and our spirituality. There we go. I think I've already brought that up, haven't I? There we go. And never mind if I brought it up already. I'm not going to go through Dana's book this year, but after the show, I'm going to go back to the last year's video. I'm going to clip a bit out and I'm going to put it up. Actually, not for just for our subscribers. I can actually do a new broadcast, just like what I'm doing now, but a pre-recorded version. So that's what I'm going to do before I leave the studio today. I'm going to put that up. And this is going to be my full interview with Dana from last year. So it'll be like watching a premiere on YouTube. I think Facebook do premieres now. Anyway, so I'll put that up for you in about an hour or so. Now, seeing as it's worth doing because I'm in a high-speed internet studio at the moment, so I might as well do that while I'm here. Now, Dana O'Driscoll, you already know her through her generous, you may well, she has this lovely Druid's Garden book. You may be very familiar. She's a Druid graduate with the OBUD, Order of Bards, OBUD and Druid, certified permaculture designer through Sirius Eco Community of Massachusetts, and also through Amiga in New York State, and that's them. They're doing, like I was saying about apprenticeship, there they are. They're doing that in New York State, and she's also a herb graduate of Jim McDonald's 4 Seasons herb course, and works a 5-acre homestead with her partner Rob, and she really loves the geese. They got a lot, but they got other birds, a few cats, tortoise, and loads of growing areas. And out of all that, she has time to be a professor of English and writing as well. There we go. But she's in Pennsylvania now, I think. Anyway, accompanying her being a prolific bard and writer, she's brought out Tarot of Trees and plant. That's a plant oracle. That's lovely. And she found time to write the Sacred Actions book. And then there's the Tarot of Trees. I think there we go. That's another thing. Anyway, I better move on here. What have I got here? That's a plants from her Plant Spirit Oracle. Anyway, we're going to have Dana next week. I'll go over this as well. I'm going to move on now. Well, let's see. Let's have a look at your comments and before we move on to the guests. That's worthwhile. There's Cliff Carr here. Afternoon, John, from a very sunny Wirral. Breezy Kelly here. I hope to be in your neck of the woods in the coming week. I'd love to call in with you and bake some bread. Yes, we got nice ovens and gas stove. Plenty of space. Boy, wouldn't that be a treat? Oh, I'd love to do a recording of that. Breezy, that's a very kind offer, and I hope that actually happens. Fabulous. I'm trying to knock this picture off for the time being. There we go. And yeah, thank you, Breezy. Nothing more sacred than making bread. Well, there's a nice, that's a very good example. Breezy Kelly there. Of sacred actions and the sustainable practice. And it's certainly been sustaining Breezy. We'll record Breezy because her background, I mean, the Bread for Peace goes right back to the Troubles. Remarkable woman, and I've talked to her about her quite a bit. But so that's lovely. I hope you do get to us at Lughnasadh, and we'll take it from there. Thanks very much, Breezy, as well. What's going on here? Yeah, we had, there we go. We had Cliff Carr as well. Fabulous. That is lovely to have some of you with us. That's anyway, guest. We got a lovely guest. She couldn't be with us personally because she's fast asleep because she's had a very, very busy few days, but we'll have her live. And I'm talking about Astrid Adler, a very multi-talented woman, extremely. I don't know how she fits it on. No wonder she's fast asleep today. She's a wise-strung harpist. There she is with her wise-strung harp. She's a jolly fiddle player. And there we go with that. She's a painter, stoneworker, plasterer, permaculture-based small farmer. She's a willow grower. There's her amongst the willow. She's a weaver, a very active environmentalist. And she's also a mime artist. There you go. So they're literally all the different faces of Astrid Adler. Anyway, I got her on video, and what we got here, we got Astrid. She starts off with a tune on her wise-strung harp, and this leads into an edited demonstration of how to harvest and weave nettles. This is so delightful. It's very different to any of the videos, but it's very much in the personality of Astrid anyway. And I'm going to post links to Astrid's full videos. I say this is just some short clippings from a couple of videos I put together. So later after the show, I'll add links to Astrid, the full videos. A website has got all her different talents on it. Anyway, I will get on to Astra's Astra. Astra, I always call her Astra for some reason. Astra. Oh God, I'm tongue-tied over her name. Astrid Adler. That's it. And this is a video that I put together, which is excerpts. And I'm sure you're going to absolutely enjoy this. Astrid now.
See.
It's just you wedge the stick between your legs and see how it goes. You doing it, Astrid? You want music loud?
No. It is harder anyway.
Oh yeah, of course.
Than wool to spin.
Oh yeah. Because wool has, you can also
I
bind
didn't
it.
expect that indeed.
There we go. There we go, Astrid Adler. There. I hope you enjoyed that. Fascinating. I just love that. That was video excerpts. The whole thing goes on forever. And Breezy said, I'd love to meet that woman. Hopefully, we will have Astrid on the show sometime live, either in the studio or over the airwaves somehow. She lives somewhere in a remote part of County Clare. I don't know exactly where. Probably in the Loch Derg area. I wouldn't surprise me. I bet she does work in Kelt when they have their courses there. But fascinating. As I say, just excerpts. And I'm not surprised Breezy would like to meet her. All those multi-talents, how she has time for it, always remarkable. Yeah, remarkable, says Sherry. Fabulous. We'll have her again. I hope so. Thanks very much. Now, one of the a section, a very foundation section, and going back to Dana's book now, is the 3 principles of sacred action, because I recognize this as being in tune with how I introduced nature folklore at the beginning of each session. And these 3 principles, I'll put them up so you can read them with me. Those being draw together wisdom from the heart and mind, walking in harmony and care with the land, and transforming our lives, landscapes, and communities, perhaps with new habits. So this is more, it's actually in the pre-recorded video that I'm going to post as a separate broadcast after the show. I don't have any more live guests. Anyway, as yeah, there's a comment here somewhere. Let's say hello to the comment. And Cliff Carr, I love that with Astrid. Brilliant music, fascinating nettlework. The idea of all that work with the nettles. I mean, she was getting in there. I think there was always bare hands or fingerless mitts, but obviously very skilled at that. And how that comes out to be like soft wool after all that. Fascinating, the whole thing. What a dedication that is. That definitely is sacred actions resulting in something sustainable, because I know I didn't have any photos there, but Astrid makes quite a few of her own clothes, especially when she performs live too. Fascinating. But we'll come back to that another time. But as our previous Celtic observers, the last one we had was summer solstice, of course. So I'd like to reflect on that for a moment, because with small home farms after the summer solstice, there's now a huge abundance and local sustainable abundance of stuff growing in our gardens, things we want in our gardens and things we don't want in our gardens. And so there's all this great food that's coming onto tables now with the early harvest, even before it's Lughnasadh. This is starting to appear, especially with people with polytunnels. But I'm thinking in terms of local, sustainable and seasonal foods and diets. And a buzzword that comes up in Dana's book, and I love this one, you know, we have buzzwords and a lot of them get invented in the USA. Anyway, locavore. You know, a locavore is someone who eats only local food as much as possible. And to be involved fussy, the concept of being a locavore is actually living on food that's grown or reared no more than 100 miles away from where we live. And by doing a Google search, I see there are locavore box delivery services all over Europe. Ireland's got 1 or 2 all over the USA, Canada, Australia. I'm not sure if New Zealand. Anyway, locavore is a buzzword, thanks to the internet, that's spreading very, very quickly. So home deliveries are being very focused on locavore. They're not, say, for instance, in Ireland, they're not importing stuff from Spain and France, blah, 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 and filling up your veg box. When you get a veg box, you know they've either grown it or they've sourced what's in that box less than 100 miles away. Or in our case, I think it's, what would it be, 160, I forget if it's 140 kilometers or something like that. Anyway, but locavore being a buzzword, it includes producers delivering to local people. And there was a locavore magazine, but the website, unfortunately, seems to have been down for over a year. And the most recent Facebook post they made was April 2019. So I think the magazine is now history, unfortunately. But actually, thinking about that brings me to another subject. It's quite funny having a locavore magazine that spreads all over the world. You know, that seems very strange. And, you know, this perhaps what I'm going to talk about now for a couple of minutes should be a separate nature folklore subject or an independent stream, not even part of nature folklore, but I'll try chatting about it for a few minutes. And this is a situation I battled with for a while, because I do love the gardening and I do love the pictures that don't come up. Let's see if I can get this up. Excuse me for a moment. There we go. Let's try that. There's 2 pictures that didn't come up, and I'm going to try and get them up for you. There we go. There's one. And this was sort of last minute stuff, and it didn't quite get into my storyboard. So I'm fishing around on the computer for stuff that isn't here, just to bring out 2, or one of the pictures, very important, Anyway, no, that wasn't the one I wanted. Oh dear, we'll try again. I'm getting two of the same pictures. I'm getting the same picture repeating itself. Right, and I'll be with you in a moment. Right, that's it. We'll try that one as well. Right, anyway, there's the principles of permaculture. And this is something I've been battling with. I love these permaculture principles. And I also love producing and presenting media like this show as well. And the permaculture life obviously is by far the most eco-friendly of the two pursuits that I do compared with media stuff. But its viability existence seems to have become dependent. Permaculture, the whole culture thing seems to have become very dependent on some kind of media exposure. And as I was saying, Locavore had a Facebook page and website to try and make it an international idea, even though it was based on a local principle, sustainable principle. And media exposure is sometimes done actually to bring some income stream to cover the expenses. And even local people, they'll host events, workshops, and courses to bring in a bit of income stream as well. Now, personally discovered, I've not been able to do both sides myself, the likes of the permaculture approach. We have the labyrinth gardens, and I was trying to do the broadcasts as well and YouTube videos. But that would have been absolutely impossible, especially with the labyrinth gardens and even the veggie garden. Couldn't do it all myself. Claire's help was very substantial. Incredible what she did when she could. But the Carracrory Cottage and Labyrinth Gardens, it was kept going really through constant help from Claire Roche. Volunteer groups have visited. We had some lovely group together days. And we even paid for a few casual workers to come along that were paid out of other fundraisers. And I found that I had to eventually choose from being a gardener or being a media person. Otherwise, I found that I was handling both tasks in a very diluted ways. Now, some partnerships have worked this out. I remember, I think I've told you a few times, the John Seymour visit I went along because I was working in the Preseli Mountains, and he was so famous for his practical self-sufficiency books, which he brought out. What was not really mentioned, it was his wife that pretty much did the garden. And poor him and his wife are just separated. And we got greeted with sliced white toast and a tea bag tea. So it just, it shows he was the bookman, she worked the garden. So they worked out a way of making them happen. But doing them both individually is very demanding. Now, for me now, it's with the nature folklore here, my life's mainly media. And I hope to do some performance gigs too as well. But next year, I think, definitely back to a bit of gardening and tree sanctuary planting and a bit of light. But it's very difficult getting the two up and running. Anyway, I suppose I'm being defensive and validating what I present on Nature Folklore because a lot of what I'm presenting is really on past experiences along with the current experiences and what's going on with our guests. So that's why I like to have lots of guests, because I like having a platform for other people anyway. But I have had I'm saying all this because I've had recent comments saying, how do I validate what I share here on Nature Folklore? So I trust that my mix of past experiences and few current experiences, and especially the current experiences of the guests that come on, it makes this all worthwhile for you. Now, going back to Locavore, I think this is a lovely cliche branding. I just remind you, there you go, Locavore. That's it. Discover and enjoy the pleasures of locally grown food. Now, to describe a changing culture and lifestyle from industrial growing and transferring ourselves into a mosaic of sustainable, local, regenerative production, one thing I find very sad about this Ukraine-Russia conflict is it's really the farming traditions. There is some industrial farming in both countries, but they still got a lot of the old tradition of local small collective farming traditions, both in Ukraine and Russia. The agriculture through much of Russia is still regenerative and it's still sustainable. So to me, this is one of the very sad things about this conflict. And there's a few pictures here of Russian salt cooperative farmers all looking very happy there. But yeah, just to point that out, that it does exist in the world. And you can, if you're doing it yourself, you can connect up with the communities around you, and you end up with a wonderful tapestry that could become national. And if you go to groups like Create the New Normal, this is one of the things they're feeding into. And once upon a time, the Green Party was like this: get local things going, get your locavore spirit going, and then weave with all the locavore spirits and spread out. And eventually you're feeding out across the nation, maybe the world, rather than from a centralized point at the top and forming a pyramid. I repeat this on various nature folklores anyway. Now, the next point of this Celtic year that we're coming up to Lughnasadh. And that's our next one, the beginning of August. And when we think of Lughnasadh, I think we think of breads, the first breads that are baked from the first grains, and also the harvesting of the first sustainable foods. And one of the first sustainable foods we have is, I don't know why. Anyway, I got some gobbledygook here. I'm going to translate. Okay. Well, one of the things, we start pulling potatoes anyway. We're already pulling the potatoes, I suppose. But that's only been for the last few hundred years, isn't it? But coming up, and it's going to be in 2 Sundays' time, we have the lovely garland rituals and the blueberry picking. There we go. We have Bilberry Sunday coming up in 2 Sundays' time. And there we go. That's some very lovely old bilberry picking. But I'm going to give you some lovely bilberry stories in a couple of weeks on it. But that's coming up. But sadly, traditions have largely faded away, Lughnasadh traditions, because they've been made into references by the church. But in Carracrory, where we used to live, there was a sports day that was hosted. And they're still hosted. I'm sure it's going to come back with a bang this year. And that includes a dog show and a baby show. And I'm going to explain the symbolism in 2 Sundays' time, because it's amazing how there is a dog show and a baby show, and that actually has folklore behind it. And I'm going to talk about that in 2 weeks' time. But for this Lughnasadh season, what Dana focuses on, surprisingly, and I questioned her about this, is she seems to have not adopted the old Lughnasadh traditions in her writing. What she's talking about is lawn liberations with a group. I questioned her. I said, what's this all about? She does go into community friendship gardening, of course, but she's got this chapter for Lughnasadh about going beyond the lawn. And surprisingly, Dana also thinks that Lughnasadh is a perfect time for us to replace our lawns, start digging up our lawns and planning and preparing something more productive for next year. And I was taken aback of that suggestion. It was me all excited about bilberries and the whole garland tradition and what goes on. I'm going to hold off explaining more and give you a treat in 2 Sundays for all of that. And then we've got the Cronkrach and Cromdove and the whole celebration of the first cutting of the first harvest, all that coming up. And that's where my mind is when we talk about Lughnasadh. The golden cereal foods at the time, there's the hay, there's the abundance of vegetables from our gardens that can be harvested. And it's not just blueberries, they're the first, but we got the raspberries, certainly the strawberries, and we're coming up to the blackcurrants are getting ripe now, but the blackberry is not far off of that. Just all this abundance for picking and harvesting coming up. So, and there's also the nuts, hazelnuts starting to ripen, and sweet chestnuts as well. So the last thing I've got in my mind for Lughnasadh is lawns. But I don't have a lawn, so I suppose that's not the way I think about it. But it also occurred to me that if you are a person with lawns, the last thing you're going to think about is the upcoming crops and harvest from Lughnasadh. Yeah, you've got this lawn, the upcoming crop of daisies. However, if you start thinking about how you would enjoy and love to enter into more sacred actions and getting into more sustainable practices, which you may think, oh, I'm too late to grow anything this year. You could get the garlic in later, but you think, oh, I'm too late for a proper garden, unless you live somewhere like Florida, where the growing season is only just starting in August, because you can't grow food in the high heat there. But thinking of Ireland and a lot of the USA and Europe, after Lughnasadh, where we live, as I say, you can get the garlic in late October, spring cabbage at the end of August. You can do some salad greens and radishes and a few small carrots. You can do that right away, but that's quite limited. You might as well do that in containers rather than digging up on the lawn if you want to urgently get into that. But all that aside, if you're not veggie garden yet, then why not dig up your lawn at Lughnasadh time? Since you're not going to be celebrating your harvest anyway. And so, yes, I'm going along with Dana with this. You can plan your food garden way ahead, especially permaculture principles, which you really could get started at Lughnasadh time coming up. So you can then dedicate the autumn and early winter, getting beds down. You can put the cardboard down, stop the weeds coming up or something, leave that over the winter. Getting your no-dig beds ready as well, raised beds. And also look up hugelkultur. Hugelkultur bed, that's getting branches and twigs that you've been clipping maybe on and off through the summer and put them all in a pile, let them rot down through the winter. You can get those beds started. That's a good Lughnasadh thing. And you can put those straight onto your lawn as well. So it's a whole form of no-dig gardening. So Lughnasadh could become a time when you could become passionate and connected to doing the first steps for your new food garden that's going to be morphed from that lawn you've got. So Dana owns up a chapter in the book, and she said, because she had a lawn. I mean, she's very much into small holding now, but there was once upon a time when the early days of putting a book together, she actually had a lawn. She said, wow, this lawn is violating my spiritual principles. And then in a book, she provides an amusing and very revealing and fascinating potted history of the USA lawn mowing tradition. I find this is hilarious because when I lived in the USA, it didn't take much for neighbors to complain about my rewilding lawn when I was leaving it and watching the grasses, because you got these tropical plants coming up wild. No, that's a no-no. And when you live in Florida, and soon letting this stuff grow, the local clipboard man would arrive in a dark suit. In Florida, they still have the dark suits, clipboard, and they threaten to fine you a lot of money if you don't bring your lawn back. You got to cut the lawn and the grass down to a certain height, and they measure it. And or to keep the neighbors happy and be within local laws. Well, the good news is, I think it was last year, that new law in Florida has been thrown out the window. Florida people are actually now being encouraged to dig up their lawns and turn them into gardens. It's a brand new law. And that's quite incredible. I don't want to go into the politics, but they do have a Republican governor there. But this has come about. Amazing. Now, during the 17th and 18th century England, if you go back to that, so kind of into the Puritan times, the lawn, the neat lawn, was very much a potent status. It had become very much, you were highly Christian, clean, and organized. If you had, in 17th and 18th century, if you had a good lawn, that was a very Christian thing to do, to have a big lawn. Never mind the dirty growing of vegetables, the God-given food. But the lawn was the status symbol. So the race was on during the 19th century to invent the perfect lawnmower to sustain this. So here we go. Lawnmowers. There we go. And that was the thing. Women mowed the lawn as well. So there we go. There's an early 19th century lawnmower. And here's another one, an advert that was going on for getting people to buy lawnmowers. And then the men started. When the men, of course, got onto lawnmowers, they weren't pushing them like the women were doing. You had to have a man's lawnmower. There you go. There's a real man's lawnmower. And sit-on lawnmowers become quite a status symbol, of course. and try and get a man off his ride-on lawnmower. Oh boy. Anyway, by late 1938, and this is something I never realized. I thought it was very fascinating. In 1938, in the USA, they brought out a mandate for a 40-hour week. A lot of people think, oh, that's for human rights. Fight for human rights. Bring the working week down from 16 hours to 40 hours. Do you know why? It's to ensure people had time to cut and care for their lawns. That's so it was a human right to have time to care for your lawns. Now, when we lived in very rural Karakori, and the priest they did by Keish village, he was also highly Christian, very much into his weedless lawn, with a very highly spiritual Marian figure on it, still there. And so I did suggest to him, why can't he offer this vast lawn? Because he's got half an acre of lawn. I said, how about offering this to the community to use as a community garden plot? Wouldn't that be highly community and Christian? He wasn't too keen on the idea. Anyway, but digging up your lawn by yourself to grow food, it does have its limitations. And if you're doing it all by yourself, you could give up very quickly. So I think the important thing is to try and form alliances with other local people who are also eager to convert their lawns also into a bit of food. And this is great because together this provides, eventually will provide a lovely food source. Here's a lovely sort of typical vegetable garden. That's actually a Florida one where they converted their lawn into a garden, by the way. These were kind of pioneers for getting that law going. They lived south of Orlando somewhere. So they were the ones that had the clipboard people and said, no, this is not right. And they were kind of forerunners of getting food going in the front lawn. Anyway, to provide the food source, get it together with the neighbors with that one, which they could easily do. And you need a nature sanctuary as well. We need some food growing. We need a space of sanctuary as well. Both spaces are essential for us for healing and recharging. Okay, let's see. Comments. How are you doing with comments? If I can get them up. But there's Breezy. She's on the way out. And thank you very much. Always hope you get visitors, Breezy. You might be already gone by now, but thanks for catching up with us for a while. Fabulous. Now, forming alliances with local people it's been quite a conversation with me this week. And excuse me, I've got to get rid of the dry throat. The bucket of water down the bottom there. I say alliances are quite a subject of conversation. Again, it's the whole Facebook, Twitter thing. And it came about talking about reclaiming land of a once local railway that ran between Collooney, which is south of Sligo, and the railway went to Athenry, which is kind of south of Galway. Now, there's two camps of support for this. One wants to reopen the railway as a railway, and the other camp wants to create a greenway for access for cyclists and hikers to get them off the road. And there's actually national funding for greenways and cyclists at the moment, but there's absolutely no funding available for the rebuilding of the railway. Now, the Athenry to Limerick during the Celtic Tiger time did get some funding, and so the Athenry to Limerick section of this closed railway was opened up. It was rebuilt, opened up about 10 years ago. But it's not used to its full potential, which is very sad. But I think the Galway to Tuam, which will be going to the east of that's going to be developed soon as a community relief service, because a lot of people do travel from Tuam into Galway and the roads are a bit congested. So why not get the railway going again? But without waiting for the government to act, the people of Tuam, they've actually created a community project. And what they've done is restored, I haven't got any pictures, unfortunately, couldn't find them at the moment, but they've restored the railway station at Tuam. And then they went on to restore some of the railway line, going beyond Tuam, going in the direction, going more east, going towards the Collooney direction. Claremorris is the next big town on, so they built a little bit of the railway line. And my debate was, now what if each community along that railway line did the same thing? worked on the local railway station, worked on the railway line, wouldn't it all start connecting up together? And wouldn't they, if every community around every railway station did this, would that eventually open up the railway line all the way from Cluny to Athenry? Would take many years, I know, but how exciting would that be, and how appreciated would that be? Every community, oh, that's our railway station, rather than a central government thing putting the funds in. I think that'd be a wonderful thing if it could happen. But Tuam of kind of setting a template for that, maybe. One current challenge, though, there is the use it or lose it proverb. And that's a challenge with that Cluny to Athenry at the moment, because when I walked from some of the Cluny to Athenry railway, it was amazing how many people had squatted the land, because that railway line is still public owned land. But I noticed there were home extensions on it, farm barns, and it's all on this public land. There's railway lines. If they decided to open up, then there's going to be some wars that people have to get rid of their extensions and barns. So people are going to get a shock, because some of those homes, when they've done those extensions, let's go move somewhere else. So of course they sell the home with this extension over on the railway line, and the poor people who moved in don't realize that they're trespassing on some public land. So there's some issues, I think, sadly going to come up there. Anyway, I'm using that example as a lead into a style of politics that I think we should really have more courage to establish, and also establish this without actually having politics in mind. I'm sure the people of Tuam doing up the railway station are not thinking in terms of being part of a political party in Dublin. They're doing it as a community alliance, community spirit. But their actions are actually political, though they don't know it. And in a way, that's bringing back lost tribal and community instincts, isn't it? Rather than the modern approach of, now, what can I personally grab and accumulate? Because that seems to what happens on a centralized system, political situation. We're always blaming politicians of swapping brown envelopes, aren't we? We think they're only in it to get their heads in the trough and grab and accumulate what they can, where that's not regarded as happening on a local basis. So creating community groups, sharing knowledge, an incredible sustainable action. And that is also a sacred action, a set of sacred actions in my mind. And I think some people, though, they can get quite selfish over their interpretation of sacred, the word sacred. I think there's a lot of cry out of, I need my me time. And I do believe that is, some me time is an essential component of living a balanced life. We do need our recharge moments, absolutely essential healing. But what if that's all we do? When we're having all this me time, this recharge time, but we're not having any interaction with others. There's no community. I think we can lure ourselves into a fortress of isolation merely to defend our acquisition of silence and disconnection from the human population. I think community action is also another component, and also does not need to totally consume our lives either. So to me, community action is wholesome, gets things done, wonderful alternative to national government, but we need that alone recharge time. But if we're disconnected from other humans, we may end up cursing the government, cursing the weather, cursing our list of what we feel are the wrongs that have been done and brought upon us by other humans. So we keep away from other humans because we're referring and cursing with all the wrongs that humans have done for us. We're much better isolated. I get on better with my cat than humans, that type of thing. Personally, I cannot recognize any of that isolation and cursing as actually being sacred. So I don't think that is very sacred me time, to be alone in your armchair by the roaring fire with a lovely cat, cursing the world and saying, I'm being ultra spiritual. No, that's not sacred time. Anyway, our personal private recharge moments, they are ultra sacred and they're essential. But let's, the balance, community action that we find ourselves in, to me, that's equally sacred. And that's perhaps not interpreted that way, but it's an enormous support towards sustainable practices. And to me, beyond any membership of any church, organization, government, political party, or anything a corporate shareholder can do. But even USA, it's interesting. People go to church in the mornings and they go off for a picnic in the afternoon. And that picnic tends to be the community action, not the church in the morning. So I think that's a sort of an example there. Anyway, within Dana's Sacred Actions book, she suggests that Earth Ambassadors has to start with building communities that provide opportunities for people to learn and to grow. And I can relate to that with our Karakuri years, because on Sundays, I wasn't broadcasting like this. We had people come along. We had gatherings before the COVID kicked in, and especially the most memorable, or perhaps the autumn equinox time. Lughnasadh was good, but the equinox was the prime time when we had our harvest gathering and harvest home meetup. And that was a fantastic time of conversation, sharing community, including conversations about permacultures, sustainability practices, how we applied those through the summer, and also people sharing requests to help each other and help to share skills. That all came in as well. And most important of this was the potluck food donations. And we had you have a potluck. I had a potluck picture, but it's kind of, shall I bring a potluck picture up? That's oh, look at that. Breezy's in and she hasn't left us. She's making apple cake for a gathering later. Just as I'm talking about this, there's Breezy. She's swallowing the instructions from this show. Anyway, we're talking about, there is, she's having a potluck, and I'm going to try and bring up a potluck picture that I used last year. Excuse me whilst I go into, it's just a simple picture just to explain what I'm saying. As if I can find a thing that says potluck. There we go. Oh, no, it wasn't. No, sorry. It's all that. Anyway, this might be a poster that you can put up if it might be appropriate. There you go. Put this up when you have Lughnasadh or your autumn equinox. There you go. Get people together. It's just an idea. That's organized, though, isn't it? Anyway, what should I talk about next? So, I know that's quite way ahead, but how am I doing for time? I must be, we're getting towards the end, aren't we? So one time, beautiful wrap-up time for farming, growing and forestry season, isn't it? And that's the time we can really bond together if we are motivated to being part of a sustainable community union. And Swan's also, as Dana was pointing out, I'll go back to the pictures I'm already at. Do I have something on this? Oh, yeah, there we go. We can make smudge sticks. There you go. Beautiful smudge sticks, because we'll have been harvesting our lavender and lemon balm and rosemary. If you're lucky, if you're in California, you got the white sage. At Karakura, we had the Louisiana sage, did better than the local sage, and that was great for smudge sticks. Yarrow is nice to throw in there as well. Anyway, but burning smudge sticks, I feel, is a beautiful sacred action, even though it does seem to be full of ritual. When you bring the atmosphere of the smudge stick, especially someone I find, and you bring that into your fire smells and the rest of it, somehow that really warms people up and brings them into a unity. It really motivates connection between people before you even start with the words. And you're doing that with plants. And there you go, beautiful plant relationship. Even though you're burning the things, unfortunately, you're bringing that community connection between ourselves with the plants. And I think I'm going to close the tour of the seasons. Of course, Dana's book goes into the whole year. And I'll come back to the winter and spring stuff another time, because in 2 weeks' time, we will really roll out the folklore stuff right through to Imbolc and beyond. Okay. I haven't listed it because I was preparing things to last minute. So I'll get information on how to get a copy of Dana's Sacred Action book. And well, definitely, if I don't get time to post it in time or you don't see it, it'll be up here posted next Sunday anyway. And as I say, Dana O'Driscoll will be here as a live guest with us next Sunday as well. So, again, I thank you all for your wonderful support. Nature Folklore Show. Is there any comments that I've ignored? I know Breezy was sort of, she's caking away beautifully there. And as I say, there we go. Thanks for your support. There we go for the Patreon. Subscribe if you can. And if not, through there, you prefer to use a card, buy me a coffee. It helps me to get by, and so I can be back with you each Sundays, because I'm not covering the expenses yet. I'd love to, please, if I could. Be lovely. So if you can help with $1, £1, or €1 or so a month, that'd be fantastic. Goes a long way of great help. So coming up, we got next Sunday. As I say, I let the cat out of the bag, as some might say. We've got Dana, who's coming up. Sustainable practices, working examples. That's the subject next week. So we've got not only got Dana, Jane Gilgan's in. She's Kate Cloudspark. She's going to be on with us next. I don't think she's been on with us today. She'll be watching this later. So Kate will be on next week. And please, anyone else, show us your sustainable practices, your working examples, even if it's sharing your story or your poems. Let's bring it all in. Let's get lots of guests and have a bit of a forum over this on the 17th. And as I mentioned, Dana will be here. You can have a chat with her. And 24th of July, we start the new 4-part Lughnasadh series, Bilberry Sunday and Garlands. And there's to show that there's a lovely garland. I haven't got any. I showed a bilberry one earlier, which was fantastic. So that's going to go from 2 Sundays time right to Imbolc. Non-stop folklore every Sunday with all the fabulous characters of autumn, winter, and spring. So it'll be 2 Sundays will be the first entry into the first harvest traditions too. Lots of innocent joy and delights of the summer as it fades away again for another year. So I think there's a couple of you chatting away here. Let's see. Right, Breezy Kelly is going to send a photo of the apple cake. And Sherry Murphy, thank you so much for a lovely session. So thank you again, especially to the multi-talented Astra. I'm going to forever call her Astra. I must be watching too much science fiction. I'm not really, but it comes to mind. Astrid Adler. Oh, I hope will be a live guest with us one day. Please keep commenting here. Most of you will be watching this later, I know, because you're out in the sun and doing other things and doing summary things, and so you should. And I do return from time to time to answer any comments that you add. Please subscribe using the bell icons. I know YouTube has them, and that will keep reminding you of details each Sunday as they come up. So it leaves me to wish you a lovely, wonderful, safe week with lots of wonder, lots of fabulous inspirations and enchantments, sacred actions for your sustainable practices. So until next Sunday, when we continue this subject again and show a lot more practical stuff, play well, have an absolute fabulous week. And that's all I got for you today. Thank you very much. And bye-bye to everyone. Thank you for being with us. I enjoyed this. Thank you so much. And now we should have an exit video. And there it is.